Welcome to a Monday morning show. I'm Ken Napzok. This is a podcast, a vodcast, as they used to call these, or did at one point, a show in which I look ahead to my week, find out what's in front of me, and hopefully it connects with you. I said last week, kind of almost a catchphrase of, look, there's a lot going on the outside, but this is a show about what's going on the inside of me. And I know there's inside of you or something like that. You know, I love catchphrases. A lot of people in the last couple of weeks, strangers, have come onto the comment sections of many of my shows and been like, why you sound like a radio DJ? And I almost want to do a rant on that. If there was, wasn't for the fact that there's just way more important things going on in the world. I have a lot of thoughts on why people seem to be opposed to actual professional broadcasters this way. So I guess I could start the video in the right way. Hey guys, I'm just going to do a bunch of jump cuts to cover the fact that I can't actually broadcast. Anyways, a lot of emotions through me this week. And this show is about what's going on inside of me, and I share it, and hopefully it connects with you, and we look ahead to our weeks, and hopefully it's a little inspiring for all of us, and maybe a positive and poignant kind of broadcast. But there's also those times where the outside of the news of the day and the world collides with everything going on inside us, and I'm right there with you too. Next week I might be talking about some stuff that I'm going to deal with this week, which is dealing with regret and unpacking regret from the last 25 to 30 years of my life, and doing some reprogramming in my brain, or trying, or seeing if it goes. We'll see. And it was going to be great. I don't have anything planned. I don't have notes, but it was going to be great. I don't know. Could have been horrible. But I can't focus on that. I can't focus on that because of the quote, as we love to say, the state of the world, these unprecedented times. There was another murder in Minnesota at the hands of federal agents. Not technically ICE, CBP, the Border Patrol, essentially, which I don't know. I guess they were heading up to the Canadian border. That's why they're there. I don't know. But like everyone, woke up the other day to that, not just horrific news, but to the sights and the sounds of it. And a lot of us, I think, struggle with the amount of news that comes into our brain. And this is, I'll say right now, as I always say, I don't have anything actually written down about what I want to say. I just want to talk honestly about what's going on. This isn't one of those protect your peace kind of episodes. I believe in that. I think that's okay. I think if you're off social media a little bit right now, you're not, I don't think there, if you don't want to feel you want to add your voice and all this, that's okay. Right. I do believe in that. The protect your peace thing is good. We all need to be healthy for any kind of fight that we might get into. But I think that's the thing that is really fucking with my brain right now. And a lot of brains is we have now had two murders happen in front of our eyes. It brings up a lot of emotions. It's brought up a lot of emotions in me. I'm big on I'm big on believing in change. I am big on believing and allowing people to have their change journeys, as I did. But I also know that sometimes we don't have the time for that. James Baldwin spoke about that famously. But also I think that's just the reality. And I understand too, and I admit, coming from a long-held conservative background, I'll say I just think liberals don't know how to fucking do this stuff as much. I think they're so not united, and it makes me angry at a lot of them. They're so lost in the weeds of how are you fighting the 100% right way, as opposed to taking the entire line forward to the front lines. That's maybe another conversation, but maybe it is a conversation here, because that's why I've been a little bit more on edge on some of my shows lately, and done with people who are ineffective in creating change, who actually are adversarial to creating change, because we need change. And I've talked about that before too, on this show, right? We need to do something, but now all of the last 10 years, I think, has been dumped into this last couple weeks. And we're all looking at Minnesota, but that's not the only spot. That's not the only spot in the world. the horrors of the protesters in Iran being wiped away, the, as always, permanently unstable Middle East that is just bonkers. I wear this Ukraine hat. I had a conversation about Ukraine in a comedy green room last night, who's someone who knew what this hat meant. It's a great conversation, too. The Epstein files haven't been released. We have midterm elections? It is truly overwhelming, and I am one of those people that says, "Hey, look, there all these. It's not unprecedented times. It's actually sometimes very precedented, and every one of those days and every one of those eras felt as overwhelming as this one does." Now, I think, to me, especially someone who's Gen X, meaning I was there when my dad brought home a microwave, and this is our kind of change, right? Where this is kind of the 1880 or 1870 to 1920 kind of a change, where you're like, I grew up, I formed who I was, I have a lot of experiences, and then suddenly humans were flying and there was motorized carriages. Like I feel as though my generation is and millennials too, older millennials are right in this, like, we're still very functional, we're still very center in society. We still remember how it was, and we're still holding on to some things and how it was, and we just it's hard to process everything going on at the rate it does. I think that's the biggest difference. All right, I'm pulled. School ends. I'm pulled out of school a little early. My mom picks me up, and the Challenger has exploded. Now I'm 10 or so. Yeah, about 10. So I don't know how to truly understand that in the moment until you get home and you see the news footage, and then you get the newspaper the next day. And that's kind of it. Then you got a week, 2 weeks, maybe even a month of reporting. We go live to our NASA expert, and it even as you get older, 11, 12, big events, historic events, just they happened not only elsewhere, but they happened on a screen, and they were told to us, very rarely shown to us. But I think over the last 20 to 25 years, it's not only something that we're told, it's something that we see almost in real time. And that has added, I think, to the overwhelming, just the overwhelming nature of what's going on. And then we all have access to form opinions and get them out there in real time. And I often don't think they're fully formed opinions. I often don't think they're fully educated opinions, but they're opinions of passion, their opinion of a sense of right, and a sense of how our morality should be. So you and it's also a sense of, it's also just how we process it. So if you race to Blue Sky or Instagram or anywhere you want to go, and it's all being tracked, right? So maybe other than Blue Sky, you can go to Mastodon, post into an empty void. But we go there to process. And even then, as it's processing, more news comes out. More news comes out. The murder this weekend of Alex Preddy, the news comes out, the first video comes out, and the first stories I see, and I'm not talking about news headlines, just the first kind of things are like that. This man was at a protest, and I don't even think that sounds 100% true. He's a protester. I think he was a legal observer of actions going on in front of him. He was there, and he had brought a gun, and he had 2 clips on him, and I'm not even saying that in terms of something that was said from like the absolute asshole of assholes, Kristi Noem or Stephen Miller, or any of the, I'm just saying, like, that was coming across on Blue Sky, AP headlines and people retweeting things or reposting things or whatever we want to call it. And so I'm like, well, that's okay. Well, let's go. All right. And my 17 years of public safety goes, well, if you showed up and you brandished a weapon at federal agents, this might be the result. And then you're trying to, but what's happening? And then more information comes out. And then other people are going to post and they're posting on the information they have. And the more information comes out that, number one, legally permitted with a concealed carry license. And the gun wasn't ever out. This wasn't about a gun. They made it about a gun. They hope to pin it on a gun. And they have, along with 10 bullets, pinned on a gun. And another camera angle comes out that thank God someone filmed, and the truth is right there for all of us to see. And then you got the assholes in power completely lying about it, which they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. But then this is also, this is like, I'm like barely out of bed. And it's boom, 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 boom. And sometimes when the dust settles, I want to find the best ways to talk about it. I want to find the best ways to affect change. I want to find the best ways to reach the people that aren't moved by this, like so many are. And it shouldn't come at the death of a person like Alex Preddy or Renee Good or anyone. And there are other names too, which I know. It shouldn't come at those deaths, right? This should be affecting people just on a base level of decency, but it's not. And so I'm sharing what I'm going through. I'm sharing the confusion I'm going through because I still have a lot of passion about the issue, and I still want to be able to solve it. I have a sense of I want to solve what's going on, but then I feel helpless because I am helpless because I'm not doing much. It's also Minnesota. It's Minneapolis, St. Paul. I work with people, I have friends that are affected directly, but you just kind of, you feel you're like, is there something else? Should we be getting in the car? Should we all be getting in the car and converging on Minneapolis? Are we at that time? Well, that doesn't, no, I can't do that because I got to go to dinner with a friend and we're all trying to live a normal life. And there's nothing normal about what's going on. And I think it's like a trash compactor squishing a car, and the car is our brain right now. I did comedy shows all weekend, and I love doing comedy even during tough times. I did at the beginning of 2025, I did a comedy show with fires burning all around us. I still wish I didn't do the show, but I was kind of in a tough spot and had to do it for the club. And it was a great night because we all gathered and we did turn off the outside world, other than little mentions or jokes or references here. And we all had a good time because we came together, and I think that's valuable. And again, I'm saying this is not an episode about protect your peace right now. We all shouldn't have peace. And I think we know that too. So all this to say, 12 minutes into this blather adjacent episode, is that's what's on my mind. Is like is this feeling of helplessness, this feeling of anger, this feeling of how do we best talk about it? But is this that time? And maybe if anything, the last couple weeks I've learned is like when you need the opinion of someone like me with 17 years public safety experience and doesn't feel that a lot of folks on the left without that experience talk about these issues in the right way. Meaning, if the goal is to change minds, which got to be part of the goal to me, to maybe win elections, whether we have them or not, we'll see. But to not just get everyone on your side. You know what I mean? I talked about this before. It's not a debate where you get points, but just like pull people along on this journey forward into a better world. I feel someone like me does have a certain set of skills and experiences to say, hey, you're talking about it wrong. And that doesn't matter to all of us. Like, it does not matter that if you say after this after this other murder, I'm sure there'll be more. It doesn't matter if between us, you call them ICE agents, but they're actually Customs and Border Patrol agents. That doesn't necessarily need to matter. It's pointless. But it's not pointless if you're trying to talk to some folks who see that and go, yeah, it looks great to me. Well, it's ICE agents. Well, it's not. You don't even know. It's not ICE agents. You don't even know what you're talking about. See, idiots. That I'm trying to. I know I can meet people there, and I know not everyone can meet me there. I know not everyone can meet me there. When I was talking about stuff about the Renee Good murder, and again called it murder from even before I got to a social media app or got to a show, texting friends. Yep, that was murder. But I know how, from my experiences, I know how they can justify that. I know how they'll get away with that. With this one, I know how they're trying to, but they're not going to. I don't think they're going to get away with this one as much. There's no comparing these two like it's some sort of sick ranking system, but this one is beyond the pale, as was the Renee Good murder. But there's enough wiggle room in that one that a report could absolutely absolve that agent of wrongdoing, even though they forced her, Renee Good, into a situation and actions, meaning a slip of the foot on a gas pedal on an icy road. They forced her into that. Not justified in any way, shape, or form. But I that's the stuff in my brain, and maybe it shouldn't come out until people are ready to hear from me, or until I can talk to folks on the other side, until I can sit down with them and say, like, you're wrong, and here's why in a language you understand. But that's on my brain. It's also looking ahead for this week. Again, the premise of the show, looking ahead to the week. We're all trying to just function normally, right? Like at some point this week, I go to the grocery store. At some point this week, I'm like, do we? And I very much believe in carrying on. Podcasting is my work. Broadcasting is my work. Comedy is my work. And I was starting to go down the comedy line. I'll come back to it. So I don't stop that, right? Bad stuff going on in the world, unless they close the comedy clubs, that's my job. Job I like. And I think it still has a value. Not like world-saving value, but again, getting word out, talking, finding better ways for all of us to be effective. We're going to have a conversation this week on blathering about what a general strike could be, would be, could be, how it would happen, logistics, all that kind of stuff. And just, is that an answer? I think possibly is, but how do you pull it off? But this week I'm like, how can I have phone calls with people in which I don't think we're on the opposite side of a political debate. We're just on opposite sides of reality. This isn't calling people crazy. This isn't that. It's just like we are seeing the same thing, and our entire lives are leading us to have different opinions on it. And I'm like, how can I make those phone calls? How can I show up at places? How can I go get those groceries? When I feel like something bigger is coming, right? So that's where I'm at this week. And I was starting to say, too, I was at comedy clubs all weekend, 2 different comedy clubs. I think collectively I saw close to 20 different comedians perform in front of 3 different crowds. Most of them sold out crowds at the venues I was at this week. And all this stuff was barely mentioned, which doesn't mean the comics were cowards. Actually, some comics were absolutely talking about it. It just was weird to feel like, are we wasting time? Are we protecting our peace right now, which has value? Are we coming together as community to find comfort in each other and to get some laughter and get some joy, which has value? Or are we 14 steps behind of a war that's already here? And I'm not talking about Civil War 2.0 and how that would play out. I think we kind of have always been in that spot. But you know what I mean? I'm looking at what's going on in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and I'm thinking, that's coming for the rest of us here too, unless something changes. And we all would like to maybe be a part, small or otherwise, of that change. But that now we have to get over the fear of just going out there with your cell phone camera to record things is something that can get you killed. Just being in your car, intentionally being there to document, intentionally being there to maybe even agitate things that shouldn't get you killed, because there's, I would say, a legal right to them. we all know now, well, that's at stake. How do we overcome those fears? How do we overcome just, it's Tuesday and you are making dinner and you kind of get in a zone and forget that there's people out there struggling this fight. And this has always been a thing, right? This has always been a thing. I've enjoyed a long life of privilege. But now that we're all here, mostly here, and most of the people in my circles, now that we're all here, and I don't think you should ever be criticized for when you arrive. Don't get me started on that. I do not think, I'll say it again clearly, I do not think you should be criticized on when you arrive to this fight. That is so counterproductive, so ignorant, and so just pointless. It's pointless. Oh, now, where were you before? Where was I before? Living my life like all of us just want to do. And it is natural to not care until it finds you in some way. I think we have to accept that if we're going to absolutely move forward. Different conversation. But I've been here. And I feel that's not enough. And everyone I was around this week, great green rooms this weekend. Every comic I was around this week, we actually weren't speaking about it. Some stuff came up. We weren't speaking about it. And that's what's different around this time. And that's what's different as I looked ahead to this week and the news cycle. It is like we all feel like this is just the opening salvo, and what's our part in it? And how did we do that? And how do I still pay bills and feed my dog and go for a nice walk when this all finds us in a way that is unimaginable? And for those who would happen to still listen to me and happen to get this far or just swinging through, who think we're overacting, you know that's not true. I think that's also what is different now. You're seeing ice even melt on the NRA, just a little. It's a drip of condensation. But even their second big post this week in response to someone else, their first statement was bad. But the second one, if you all know what I'm talking about, was a little bit of a weird thawing that I had not seen before. You're seeing a lot of people finding themselves at a moral crossroads. People that aren't normally in this state. People that have been allowed to just kind of live 4 blocks away, up from the problems. That's what's starting to change too. There was this unspoken kind of silence with a lot of people I was around this weekend. This wasn't just a one-time thing. And again, I know there's been other deaths. There's been deaths of people in at these detention centers. The Renee Good one was perhaps the most dramatic and definitely the most white. And that, whether we like that or not, gets more attention. It shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. But it's easy, especially if you're been around a bit and haven't been scrolling your whole life, your entire existence, but you remember a life around it, it was always easier to not just turn it off because you don't want to see it, but because that's what you do. Something bad happened, you hear about it, you watch the news at night, you read about it in the paper, and then it was kind of done. That's why I think someone like me, to take it to a silly trite point, that's why I think someone like me, and a lot of people like me, love docs, and it can be a little somber, but and a little bit of macabre, but like that's why I love like a four part doc series on the Challenger exploding. Yeah, please, because none of that played out in real time, other than the incident, which did tragically play out in real time. Everything else was a news report. And now we have, with the benefit of a documentary series, can go back and parse it out. And it's been just an event that I experienced as a kid. And you kind of have this, wow, that's happening. But now, as I said up top, that is all happening to us now. Heather Cox Richardson talked about this kind of being one of these big kind of, for me, I call it a crease in the history page of it's very difficult to turn away now. And I've talked recently and talked on shows that going up to like my hometown, there's a lot of good people in my hometown. I want to be clear. It's not all completely red. There's a big artist community up there that generally leads to blue dots and red spaces. But it wasn't that. And then there's MAGA flags and Trump hats, and every other car has an American flag and a thin blue line flag, and I despise all that. It's actually comical. It's pathetic. It's really pathetic. But when I was up there recently, following, this is right after the Renee Good murder, like the whole town didn't know. And I mean that. I choose that word. Not didn't care. There was probably a lot of folks who didn't care, or a lot of folks who were like, what, a protester got in the way of cops and got killed? Yeah, that's what happens. Guarantee that. But believe me when I say the feeling was that just a lot of people didn't know. A couple weeks later, I don't think that's the same. I don't think that's the same. And looking in the eyes of everyone this week as we tried to go about normally, which again, I will say still has value. It's still how we tie ourselves to reality and can function. All right? So I just talked about some travel advice on the Blather recently. That's why when I travel, I like when I get there finding a little store or a corner or a street that becomes mine on a trip. Because as much as it's fun as it is to travel, you're discombobulated. Your life, your routine's disrupted. And I like creating a new routine and like, I can glom onto that, right? I think that's how we can function. So going to the grocery store might be how we all glom onto some sort of sanity right now. But every person I was around this week, it wasn't that we were just trying to have a moment of peace. We all just knew we couldn't. But it was unspoken. It was unsaid, not discussed. It was almost as if I either want to go pop culture, like Lord of the Rings, a Gandalf and Pippin having a conversation about the night before battle, or a conversation about life and death before an orc army breaks their wall. I almost want to go there, but I'm going to go straight at something that did play out kind of in real time, but actually not to the degree that things do now, and that's 9/11. I sat there and watched that. My brain broke that morning. But even then, 2001, I was able to turn the TV off for a little bit, get some things done, take a nap, go to work, watch the news there. Didn't have a phone in which I was connected to everything going on in front of me. So even that was different. But then you go back and you revisit it just months later, years later, with all the documentaries that are out there. And you all know, if you listen to me long enough, I have my weird obsessions with like 9/11 docs, and I said the Challenger doc and anything like I'm of that ilk. Can't explain it now. Don't need to now. But there is a moment in the 9/11 doc made by the French brothers who were there, who were inside, that the first, I think, official registered marked death of a New York City firefighter employee was the chaplain, Father Mike Judge. Great man with a great legacy. And he's in that doc, and the people, Chief Pfeiffer and the people talking about later, they're dealing with this thing because they're trained to deal with this thing. They know this. We know it's bigger. We're going in. Something's bigger. The first plate is at the tower. We're going in. Everything's going on, and chaplain's there per normal routine. And they remark in this doc that you could see him off, pacing, walking, mumbling, praying, talking to himself with a look on his face that said, this isn't good. And what are we going to do? And all the firefighters in there had that look as well. All right, yeah, we'll go up. We'll grab hoses. Well, the elevators don't work. All right, we'll go up 75 flights. But every one of them speak about looking into the eyes of their fellow firefighters and not knowing how they're going to get out of this one. That's dramatic and big and real history in which thousands of people died, I know. I'm not saying it to be cute. I'm not comparing myself or anyone else around me to the firefighters and other first responders and all the people who died and lost their lives that day at all three locations. None. But I'm saying, as I try to make sense of what I was feeling this week and what's in front of me this week, it's that. We're all kind of looking at each other thinking, well, this all ends, right? We've been through this kind of stuff before. Riots break out in cities for various reasons. Horrible things happen on camera in front of us. People are murdered. Injustices are seen and witnessed to. And we get mad. We get upset. Maybe we do show up at an event. Maybe we bring a sign. Maybe we post a bunch of things. We tweet it. We tweet it. We skeet it. We Instagram it. We TikTok it. We do the things, and it's not trite and it's not cynical. And we do our resist spots and we call our representatives. We gather up and we laugh when we can, and we furrow our brow and say, "This is unprecedented times." But it ends. It ends, right? We go on to something a little more normal for a day or two or a week or a month or a year. I see, personally, from my point of view, what is going on right now has no end date. It doesn't seem normal anymore. It doesn't seem like this is just going to be a chapter in a history book or a great Netflix doc 2, 3, 4, 10 years from now. And so I feel at a loss of what to say. I feel at a loss of what to do. I feel at a loss at who to be mad at sometimes, on whether it's my allies or the enemy. I don't even know if that's the right way to refer to them, because then we are in a war. But none of this feels to me like it's going to just wrap up with a nice little bow and a news report from a nice man in a suit. So that's what I'm going to carry into this week. That's what's behind everything I do this week. And I'm going to see how we come out on the other side. Not in the sense of what's going on there in Minneapolis. Not the sense of what's going on in any other part of the world, but just what's going to happen to us. Where are we going to be after this? How are we going to get there? Reach out to those you love. Talk to those you love. I'm trying to be open and honest about where I'm at this week. If I said something wrong or said something that you didn't agree with, I got it, get it, got it, good. But be here on this side. Let's have a conversation, maybe. Not a misconstruing of my words. That is counterproductive to our situation. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Let's get through this together. Like I said, find some joy this week. Not going to give the cute, protect your peace. No, we might all actively have to find some peace this week just to function. Okay. We're here. That's the thing. Whether we like it or not. These times are upon us. Get through it together. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to a Monday Morning Show.